How many people here are lawyers or law students?
Yeah.
I know we have some parents of law students, but any lawyers or law students? Okay, so at least a couple. Let me just get this over with real quickly. Do you have an interest in becoming a judge? Just be honest. Don't be Asian, just speak up.
Well, my husband does.
He does?
That's
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
He's great.
Judicial appointments, in a very simple nutshell, judicial appointments are just the same as all the other appointments that we're talking about, with the difference being that obviously you're talking about people that are going to be serving on a bench. So they're not going to be sitting there drafting laws that say, here's what the life should be about. They should be adjudicating. So there's a little bit narrower scope of qualifications. Of course, at the federal level, it's a whole different conversation because you're talking about lifetime appointments and White House appointments. But at the local and state levels, it's a little bit more of a campaign that gets involved with that. But we're not going to get into too much of that. We can have an offline conversation. But let me just summarize what Maeley did, because she did a great job in telling you the real life situation of what happens. I'm not that smart, and I can't do a lot of things all the time, so I try to break things down to the simplest parts. Okay, that's just the way I think. And
He's great. He's just
no.
very Asian.
Many years ago.
But you make eye contact.
Yes, right.
You know, there's about 30 miles north of here, maybe 20 miles north of here, is University of California, San Francisco, which is otherwise known as Hastings College of the Law. That's where I went to law school. The dean of that school is Frank Wu, is a Chinese American, and Frank's a dear friend of mine. Frank and I have known each other since I was in law school, and he, being a law professor, gave me one piece of advice years ago to a lot of people that I've always remembered. He says, don't have more than 3 bullet points. All right, just remember everything in the threes, because nobody can remember more than 3 things. Up to 3 you can remember, like, that's why I only have 2 kids. But so you don't want to have more than 3 things to remember, because wife and 2 kids, that's all I can remember. So here's my 3 bullet points for the way Maeley explained all this, and for you all to keep this in mind.
Thank you.
It comes down to 3 P's. All right, you need to have professional qualifications. That's a given. If you're not qualified professionally, like if you want to be a judge and you don't have a law degree, forget it, right? if you want to serve on the healthcare board and you've never done anything in your life in healthcare except go to the hospital one time, forget it, right? You need to have professional qualifications. That's a given.
Yeah.
All right? Now, I'm going to go back to it in a second. Second P, what political value are you bringing to the table? What is the political value that you're bringing? What Maeley said was exactly right. You don't walk in and say, hey, governor, mayor, city council people, you all don't have enough Asian appointees. Give me that job. I'll fill your quota. You walk in like that, you'll be out the door. But if you said, oh, some of the groups I'm involved in the OCA chapter, I'm involved in the PAPA, I'm involved in these organizations, the other side of the table will figure this out really quickly. Hey, we got a great Asian American qualified candidate. That person fills that spot that we need. You don't have to ever say that publicly, but they know already, right? So what political value are you bringing? And then the third P, personality goes a long way, like Maeley was saying. I mean, and part of our shortcomings as Asian Americans is we might have great personalities, especially after hours when you're at a karaoke, but when you're in an interview, somehow that personality doesn't come through. Likewise, personality and people skills, so it's the same P, personality/people skills. That's what you really need. That's that extra oomph. That's a secret recipe for somebody that, if you have 3 people that are just as qualified, perfectly identical on paper, you're going to depend on, okay, who do I know that knows that person? Who do I feel more comfortable with? So let me wrap this up this way. Have you all been in a position where you had to apply for a job? I assume everybody has, right? You've been in interviews before, right? Have you all been in a position where you had to hire somebody for a job? As either a boss or a supervisor? You have, right? So you know what this is like. You know what it takes for somebody to get a job. You look at the resume, they qualify, yes, professionally. What kind of value do they bring to my company or to my business or my organization? Yes, I need somebody with an economic background. This person has a finance degree, so that person fills that spot. And then, do I like this person? Do they interview well? Is it somebody I can spend hours and hours together in a little cubicle working together in like an HP or whatever company it might be in Cupertino? Yeah, you get that. So the same 3 things fit this mold with the difference. And the difference is we're talking about, like we said before in the Rubik's Cube example, we're talking about policy-making jobs. This isn't about running a bureaucracy. This isn't about creating widgets that you're selling into the commercial marketplace. This isn't about going to Wall Street and trying to get more funding for your project. This is about creating laws and policies that
That their candidates that they sent for presidential appointments were the best and the brightest. So it wasn't based so much on our ethnicity. we're just the best candidates.
exactly.
And they did a great
Exactly.
job with that.
And also remember, and this is something Maeley mentioned earlier, it's an unwritten rule, unwritten thing. We don't talk about it publicly, but there is a vicious competition, right? For every spot that opens up, whether it's a state, federal, local level, every position that opens up, you're going to have a ton of good people that want that job, if it's a good job. If it's not a good job, obviously, you're going to have to beg for people. And in our case, the competition is going to be our Latino friends, our Asian, African-American friends, LGBT, women's groups, disability groups, veterans organizations. Those that are not white men who feel like they just never had enough of their own in government positions. And so remember back in 2012 during the campaign, one of the debate moments between Mitt Romney and President Obama at that time was a famous saying where Mitt Romney says, well, I was trying to appoint all these women to my cabinet. In fact, I had a binder full of women. Remember that saying? Binder full of women? That became this like a soundbite. That's what he was talking about. His point was, I didn't have enough appointments, and so I was going to all these women's groups saying, give me some women nominees, give me some resumes. So he literally had a binder full of women resumes. That's what he meant, not binder full of women. Guess what? We actually created a binder full of Asians.
Right, I remember.
Now, don't ever quote me for that.
We did.
We actually,
That's
in
right.
96, 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, we created binders full of Asians. Unfortunately, that binder is very thin. It could be like one folder, basically. And so what we need to do is make that binder as fat as possible so that the next president, whichever party it is, comes in, we can say, here are 50, 100 people that we think are the best among our community who happen to be the best. Now, they happen to be Asian American too, but they are the best people that you should appoint because you get all these things out of it. And by appointing them, we constantly make that binder bigger and bigger and bigger.
Any questions? I know we're time.
Okay,
Yeah.
now, I do have to speak somewhat because the reason I have to speak is that you two have cut into more than 15 minutes
Okay.
of my time. Among ourselves, could we organize, could we commit that we are very adaptable, we adapt from different culture to be here? Can we be trained? We are trained very high skill, very difficult thing like coding, crazy coding, or biotech, or any more difficult thing that any of this society can compete for. We definitely could be trained. So therefore, are we ready to make that folder fatter? As Mark have said. So this is something that I think everybody should carry with them. And then for that, I think what we lack a lot of time is example, mentors. I think we need to strive for that. And I think to have Maeley and Mark being here, just an inspirational. Just somebody we can look up to. So therefore, I think everybody needs to just create that pipeline. I think the pipeline is important. Okay, I'm going to take over the thing and then boss, just sit down. Maeley is writing a book, and then she cannot be interrupted too much by driving long distance. And because of that, and then Liliana and myself have the opportunity to not only to meet up with Maeley and also Ron, her husband, extremely intelligent political consultant. And then for that, and she gave us the inspiration of the meeting of today. So therefore for that, we just appreciate it very, very much. And then Mark is so appreciative of your being presence here. You flew all the way from Virginia and just inspirational. I think we'll look up to you as a mentor, but on the other hand, when we look up to your mentor, you have a responsibility to come back to us. We continue to, we seek for your wisdom and your intelligence and your desire and your good example.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.